Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Commander Clash podcast. This week, we have a special one. We're doing Keep or Mulligan. The thing you never see on Commander Clash is our mulliganing decisions. So we're going to talk about a bunch of scenarios and see what we're going to do and see if you agree with us. So I am Richard, the Codfather. Joined with me today, Tomer, very handsome in a beanie and t-shirt. What is that combination? Are you cold or are you hot, Tomer?
I believe, Richard, as a Canadian, you know this is called a toque, not a beanie. I'm disappointed in you.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, are we getting to the toque debate?
Seth
I remember what Seth calls it. Seth calls it a winter hat.
No!
A winter hat,
No!
From upstate New York, I think he is very qualified to talk about warm
I do know about winter.
clothing you put on your head. Seth,
I'm more north
Saffron Olive. How are you doing?
I'm doing well in my winter hat.
And Krim is normally here, but he couldn't make it today due to power outage reasons. So we'll make up his answers for him when we feel appropriate. That's what happens when you don't come up to the Clash podcast. You keep 5 landers with no ramp. Okay. So before we get underway, we have some bookkeeping to do. If you want to support the show, you can support us monetarily by going to mtggoldfishmerch.com, clearing out Richard's garage. There's a lot of stuff in there, so get busy, everyone. And then also, if you just want to help us out without dropping any hard-earned money, you can give us a thumbs up, a like, a subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to us on. We're on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, etc. So yeah, those are good, easy ways to support us. So let's get into it, gentlemen. So mulliganing is very important. I don't know why no one talks about it. You build a deck, you play it. Part of playing it is mulliganing, and probably it sets up your first kind of like 3 or 4 turns, so you should probably do it well. So that's why we're talking about it, because a lot of people are asking, why are you talking about mulliganing in a casual podcast? Well, it's kind of important to how you play. And I don't know if you guys agree with me on that. Like, is mulliganing important here? Are we try-harding? Do you mulligan like any differently? 60 card versus 100 card? Like, what are your general thoughts on mulliganing before we get into the scenarios?
People should mulligan way more in Commander. One of the unique aspects of Commander is you get a free mulligan. Like, so if your first hand is not doing what you want it to do, I think people should be way more willing to ship that first hand and get a look at another free one. You also get a draw on your first turn. So even if you end up having to go to 6, it's not really the end of the world, and it's Commander and you got a bunch of opponents. People usually aren't going to punish you too much if you stumble a little bit. So I think mulliganing is very important, and we should all probably mulligan more often in Commander.
Mm-hmm. I think it's definitely different in terms of what I'm looking for in Commander versus what I'm looking for in a 1v1 format, though. Like, I'm okay in Commander, for example, to not have like a 1-drop or a 2-drop, depending on my deck. Like, if I just have like 3 or 4 lanes, I'm much happier in Commander being like, all right, I'm going to hit my lane drops and my deck, starts pumping out threats at like turn 4 or whatever. I'm okay with that. Whereas in like a draft format or just like any 1v1, it's like, I gotta have a curve. I can't just play a lane drop for the first 2 turns and then expect to live versus like aggro or something, Like, so it's different, but I think it's equally important because you don't want to be in a format where you get a free mulligan. Why would you not take a free mulligan to ensure that you have like a decent start, right?
Because it could get worse.
It could get worse.
Isn't that the big fear that everyone has? Like, you're like, I have lands, I have spells. What if I mulligan into a no-lander? And then there's my free mulligan. I got mulligan again. Now I'm on 6 cards, right? I think it's that kind of fear of the unknown. But I agree with Seth. People should mulligan way more. 60-card formats included. I think people do not mulligan enough. And I think, for me, the general strategy is the same, although the implementation is different. Like, does this hand support your game-winning strategy? If not, you should mulligan. Like, in 60-card formats, you might need a 1-drop. In 100-card formats, that might mean ramp and draw, stuff like that, right? But yeah, I think it's pretty important. And for whatever reason, we cut it out of Commander Clash. So today we're going to go through all of our mulliganing decisions live for you guys. And then listeners, you can tell us if you agree with us or you would mulligan differently. Because I'm actually curious, because I don't know if I'm doing it correctly. But yeah. So let's get underway. First situation, okay? Now, these are a bit loosey-goosey. I'll give you a general shape of your hand. You might need to kind of quantify it depending on like which commander you have and stuff like that, but we'll get to it. This one's easy. Seth, Strip Mine, Commandeer, 5 blue cards.
Snapkeep, because I'm going to end up with Tomer's Mana Crypt anyway, so it's kind of like having 2 extra lands in hand, so yeah, every time.
How do you feel about this hand?
I'm snapkeeping because the one thing I have to do before Commander Clash is done / I leave it is I have to get him back for it. So this is my best chance. I need to also make sure there's like an episode or a season where Mana Crypt is no longer on our house ban list, just so I can get him with it.
So, who remembers which year or episode that was from? But that actually happened. There's a long-going meme of Commander Clash. So,
I remember.
Check it out somewhere. We'll
link
the reference.
If you're watching this on YouTube, it's popping up as a card now. So,
okay, let's get into the serious hands here. 0 lander. Okay, 0 lands, Mana Crypt on Color Signet. Is this a keepable hand?
So, okay. It depends a little bit on the colors of your deck. If you're a 2-color deck, I would probably keep this. Because I'm going to assume that Signet is going to give me all the colors I need. I'm going to have access to 3 mana on turn 2, which is actually 1 ahead of where I'd normally be if I was making land drops. And I got all the lands in my deck, so my odds of drawing them are not actually that bad. So I think in a 2-color deck, Snapkeep, 3+ color decks, that's where it gets a little sketchy because it would depend on the hand. Am I missing a color to cast my commander? Can I cast all this stuff in my hand? So I think that's where I'm at. Snapkeep 2-color. Outside of that, more on the fence.
I agree with Seth. Like if it's a 2-color deck, yes. I would keep it. If it was more than that, probably not, depending on the rest. But it also depends on the rest of the cards. Like, can I cast anything else with 3 mana? And if I can, then that's probably a yes. If like it's like those 2 cards and like a bunch of 6 drops and my commander can't come out either, then no. So it really depends. There's 3 mana. It's good. It hits both of my colors, which is good. But can I cast anything with it immediately? That'd be the next question. If that's also yes, then it's a keep for me.
I think I mulled this in all scenarios.
Are you afraid of the Vandal Blast?
This is a super risky hand, right? So you have 3 mana, but it's all fragile. Okay, so like if anything happens, someone like has a Vandal Blast they want to troll you with or whatever, like you're kind of done. But like you are setting yourself up to miss like consecutive land drops coming here, right? Like even if you rip off a Secret Rendezvous, like unless you're actually drawing 3 lands, you're gonna miss land drops and you're just falling behind and you have this fragile ramp. If you hit land drops, you become very scary, even though you may not be scary because like you're gonna run out of lands eventually. So I think this is just like a bad situation. Like if you make like 1 land drop, your opponent's like, oh my goodness, he's on 4 mana or something, right? Like, we gotta kill him, and then you miss all the rest of your land drops and do nothing and die. Or you just miss land drops and then you're just going backwards. So I would actually keep like a 3 lander, like no ramp over like this like very fragile ramp. And then you're also taking damage with Mana Crypt, right? I don't know if that counts for anything, but it's pretty risky for my taste. Especially if this was like a 7, you get a free mulligan. I think you would mull this.
And if you do get scary, it's probably easy for someone to take out like the Mana Crypt or something, and then you become very unscary and do nothing. We've seen that happen to Phil a couple of times in recent seasons where like he has this Mana Rock draw, but only a couple of lands, and then the Mana Rocks get taken out and he just doesn't play for the rest of the game.
Yeah. Or if Signet dies, you don't have colored mana. That's another
That's also
issue
bad.
with this. Like this is kind of more like 1 land Ancient Tomb or something. Like you could be color screwed. So Yeah, this one's a tough one. But I know a lot of people will agree to keep this and then just pop off, right? They just draw land card draw or something, right? And it looks amazing, but then I can see someone playing a collector oof and you being like doing absolutely nothing. Okay. Yeah. Let's move on to the one-landers. Now, I know these situations have come up quite a bit on Clash, and I think we waffle on this. So, one land rampant growth, where that one land is a green land. Is that good enough?
Okay, so it kind of depends on what else is in my hand. If you add Kodama's Reach or Cultivate into that hand, I would keep it. I think the math favors keeping it. If not, then I think it's a super easy mulligan. Because even if you get lucky and do hit the land, what are you doing after that? You still only have 3 mana. You might not have anything else to do. So if I know I could follow it up with another ramp spell, if I get to 3 mana, then I think I would keep it. I actually mathed this out. You're like 65% to hit a land in your 2 draws. So by your turn 2, you're 65%. So 2/3 of the time, roughly.
How many lands?
Like 37 What's your land
untapped
count?
lands.
That's assuming you're playing 38 lands.
Okay, so for our average viewer plays 30 lands. That
if you're playing 30 lands, you should probably be mulliganing.
28 lands.
What if you're playing like 38 lands, but like 6 MDFCs? Does that?
The tap lands. The tap lands,
tapped, right?
Yeah.
I think that's okay. Because I just want lands in absolute sense. Like, it would be annoying if I have an MDFC and I have to wait a turn to play my rampant growth. But if I'm starting with 1 land and 1 rampant growth, I just want any lands I can hit. So I think it's just a mull unless I have like a Cultivator Kodama's Reach. Then I'd be willing to risk it because then I'm going to have a handful of action and my mana is going to be good. If I draw 1 single land, then I am just off to the races.
I don't keep this. I mean, yeah, if I have like a Kodama's Reach or something as well in here, but like if this is just like land and a rampant growth and then a bunch of like non-land put stuff into your hand, this is worse than a 2-lander keep, which I also would be very suspect on. Like the rampant growth is just worse because if you don't hit the land, even if it's like a 65% chance, that's not good enough for me at all. So it's worse than a 2-lander. Because the second land, which is the rampant growth, is not a guarantee. And then even if you do go to your 3 lands, what are the odds that you're going to keep hitting your land drops after that? I don't know. You need something else to like put lands into your hand guaranteed afterwards. So like 9 times out of 10 I wouldn't keep this, but I'm also a hypocrite, so who knows.
Okay, bigger. I think I agree with Tom, right? I wouldn't keep this because that rampant growth might as well just be a land that's like guaranteed, as opposed to like a 1/3 chance you don't play Magic right here. What about the bigger brother? 2 lands, Kodama's Reach.
I am likely to keep that.
Snap keep.
Because is it a snap keep?
Snap keep. I've done it every time, and I'm never punished for snap keep.
So I don't know if I consider it a snap keep, but I think it's a keep. Like, not only is any land going to let you play, but any 2-mana ramp spell is going to let you play. So your odds of hitting are like even higher. So I think I would normally keep that in most decks.
Yeah, it's a snap keep because it takes you to 4. Okay, so you got to hit 1 land, but then you go to 4 mana, right? Because it gives you like an extra land. So like you got to sweat it for a turn, and then it's like clear sailing. Whereas some of the other scenarios where you got to keep sweating for like the rest of the game to keep drawing cards. So the built-in card draw here, I think, really helps you. And I'm almost positive this has happened on Commander Clash many times, and we always snap keep it. And I think we've been punished like maybe once. And maybe it's actually Seth, which is why he was... I think it was Seth that actually got punished for this once. So most of the time, it's Tomer that gets away with it.
I think that's why I'm the one person that's not snap keep, is I remember getting punished with this one before.
I keep it and then I never get punished. I think also we had a debate once with like Tom. He joined in for like, we were playing like an arcane. I was playing like my arcane deck or whatever. And he talked about like he had a 2-lander with a Kodama's Reach and he wasn't punished either. So I think statistically it's 100% of the time. 90% of the time it works, or 50% of the time it works every time. I believe that's how it says. So yeah.
All right. Does Vampiric Tutor count as a land? If I have one land, Vampiric Tutor, is that keepable? Because the one land is a swamp or something, right? So you can cast a tutor.
That's why you can cast a Vamp Tutor.
Let's say you can Vampiric Tutor for an Ancient Tomb, so you can get 2 mana, or you can Vampiric Tutor for a Karoo or something, a bounce land. Is this good enough? I know you guys hate casting tutors for lands, and we always
you gotta do what you gotta do,
each other for it. But is this keepable?
This hand's so interesting to me because you get that free draw on your first turn. So you keep this hand, you draw. If you draw a land, things are great. You can tutor up a Soul Ring if you want to and play it the next turn, and you have tons of mana. If you don't draw a land, then you got the fallback plan of Vampire Tutor to get the Ancient Tomb or get a dual land or get a bounce land. I lean towards yes on this one. I think this is a keep for me. It's not a snap keep, but I like the flexibility that Vampiric Tutor has to offer, combined with that getting to draw on your first turn in Commander.
I think it also depends on what I'm going to be doing with the equivalent of 3 mana or whatever, because that's what I kind of view it as. It's you can have a land, and then you can Vamp Tutor for a Soul Ring or an Ancient Tomb or a bounce land. Any way you slice it, it's basically you have 3 mana with these 2 cards at the end. Is the rest of my hand / my commander something that I can play with 3 mana? And if the answer is yes, then that's an easy keep. If the answer is no, I guess it depends on the rest of the cards, but I'd be more it would be more up in the air, right? But I don't think this is a bad hand.
I think it's way better than the Rampant Growth one-lander.
Yeah.
I think the one-lander Vampiric Tutor is way better than Rampant Growth one-lander.
Is it so that Vampiric Tutor is essentially a mulligan, right? Vampiric Tutor is you go down a card because you don't draw, right? You put it on top. So it's essentially a mulligan where you get to choose one land blank, right? You get to choose that other card, and then you're just ripping cards off the top. So is that
you get the upside, though, because if you run hot and just draw lands, then your Vampiric Tutor can get your whatever, combo piece or whatever bomb that you want, or a card draw spell or something. So I like the upside of the Vampiric Tutor.
But it's an effective 6-card hand. But if it's your first mulligan, you can mulligan back into another 7-card hand, right? So shouldn't you just take the mulligan here? And then if this is your second mulligan, then you can be well, this is the same as a mull to 6, so I'll just keep this.
Kind of it is a going down to 6, but mulligans are random, whereas this one guarantees that you're going to be getting the best draw possible. So yeah, it's not ideal, but I do like the idea of you got to draw one card. If that's a land, you get to adapt, and if it's not a land, you get to get the best land out of your deck. So it's like a supercharged 6. It's not an ideal 7, but it's not as bad as a fully randomized 6 in my opinion. So, but then again, there's a free mull.
Off the rails here. Okay, this is Richard, big brain moment. Okay, what if instead of playing 37 lands, I cut 4 lands and just play tutors? So that I can use the tutors to fetch up basics, but in the upside where I get to draw more, where I actually have lands, I can use them as tutors. Is there any world in which that is correct?
I think the problem is the lack of cheap tutors. If there were 4 1-mana tutors you could play, then I think that would actually probably be a fine strategy. I don't know if you cut 4 lands, but maybe 3 or something.
There's a lot of 2-mana tutors, right?
Are there? You got Demonic Tutor, and then you're up to 3 mana mostly? I don't know. That would be my concern.
Infernal Tutor.
How are you going to sacrifice something if you don't have any mana to cast something? Or I mean, it's an interesting idea, but I lean towards no on that.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think if you're playing enough tutors, you probably can cut a land or 2.
Yeah.
If your deck's playing 8 tutors, why not? It's just cantrips. It's kind of similar to the theory with cantrip, that if you're playing a ton of cheap cantrips, you can get by, with the Xerox thing of cutting a land or 2, because your cantrips can find you lands if you need them to. I think the same would be true of a bunch of cheap tutors.
It is mana efficient, though. If you're running Sylvan Scrying and taking out a land for it or whatever, paying 2 mana to put a land into your hand so you can get your land drop for the turn, it does mean if I do have a 2-drop on turn 2, but I have like a 3-drop on turn 3, and I'm missing my 3rd land, and I'm paying 2 mana to find that land and hit my land drop. That means I didn't cast my 3-drop, so I don't know.
But the upside, Tomer, is when you draw your 8th land, it can now be a demonic tutor, which can be something legitimate, right?
Yeah.
Demonic
tutors are always good,
but interesting. Yeah. Like, I mean, all reviewers run like 30 lands. Like, maybe this is like this is kind of the thing, right? They're like, we'll put mana rocks in. So CEDH runs very few lands because everything is super efficient and they have cantrips, right?
And their mana value average mana value is far lower than a casual deck. Like,
and you have tutors to like fix it.
Yeah, that's like they run ad nauseum because their average mana cost is so low. Like, if you put ad nauseum in your like a random commander deck that's casual, it's gonna kill you.
Yeah, Phil would die in like 3 cards with the ad nauseum.
Yeah.
All right.
I threw in one. Yeah.
Forest, Wild Growth, Mindstone, Hunter's Insight, which is a draw spell, Snake Umbra, which is also a draw spell, and your commander's a 3-drop Halar.
This is
isn't this like the God Hand?
I've literally had this situation, and I asked people if this was a keep or not. So this is why I threw it in here.
Ooh, so what's wrong with this hand? I would say this is a mull. So the problem is Halar's Gruul.
Oh, Halar's
right?
2 colors.
2 colors.
So this hand,
okay.
This hand needs to draw another land to do anything. Like, this hand by itself, you can Forest, Wild Growth, Mindstone, but then your card draw all depends on having a creature out, and your commander needs a red source. So it would be super risky. Like, the upside is if you high roll and draw the red source, then this hand's really good. You play Halar and you draw a ton of cards and everything goes well. Needing a specific color of land or another ramp spell, though, that makes me too nervous. I think I would ship it because of the color screw. If I was playing Omnath or Finn or some like mono green commander that was the same scenario, Snapkeep, no second thoughts about it.
I snapped this off. So now I understand what the trick is. I still snap this off. Like, you need 1 land.
It has to be a red.
The rest of your game plan is like explosive. Like this is like a game-winning hand, right? It's not like you need 1 land and then like you limp along, right? Like, you're gonna draw cards now, and you don't. Like, it's not over if you don't draw that 4th land. You can draw any like 3-drop. Like mono green 3-drop, right? And then it will fix you, right? And then in addition, you draw a red land. You can draw any of your green ramp in this time to fix this as well, which will fix your red. So I actually think I would snap keep this.
Plus, you can always crack your Mindstone to try to draw a red source.
Mindstone.
Yes, the good old 3-mana draw 1 Hunter.
I need to know, Tomer. How did the game go?
Well, you can watch this. It's an abridged gameplay video that I posted on the channel, so link popping up if you're watching this on YouTube. The way it ended up is I drew Incubation Druid on turn 1, not a land, and Incubation Druid is basically a 2-mana mana dork that can tap for any color, essentially. So I was already good on red by turn 1 on my first drop. But then the second turn, I drew a mountain. And then the third turn, I drew Kodama's Reach. And then I was coasting.
Oh, so you probably ran away with that game then. With that hand with having the mana, like, you're in amazing shape.
Yeah, and then I drew into protection for Halar, so I started just drawing cards and stuff, so it was fine.
Although, hilariously, Incubation Druid actually only makes mana of a color of a type of land you control produces.
What?
So I don't even know that Incubation Druid actually solved your problem there, but the Kodama's Reach saved it.
Well, yeah.
being green saves everything because you can draw into any like 2 or 3 mana ramp or like there's a lot of utility creatures. Like, you could just play a Rex Sage to get some Hunter's Insight value. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of things you could be doing to get yourself out of this with these colors.
I think.
All right. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, I think that actually really changes the math a bit, too, just having all those rampant growth effects and so forth. I think it makes it a lot easier to keep the borderline hands if you have that compared to another color.
Yeah, because you're not dependent on just your lands in your deck, which is like 36 or 38 or whatever number.
You're getting like 10 extra hits or 6 extra hits or something. Yeah, to shift
Mana
the math.
fixing ramp is like a very important consideration because it does increase your hit count a lot.
All right, non-green deck, 1 land, 3 2-mana rocks, and then 3 cards CMC 5 or greater.
So you assume that if you can cast your hand, it's probably good because you have a bunch of expensive cards. If you draw 1 land, you probably can cast your hand eventually, maybe slowly.
Snapkeep.
Wow, I was gonna say Snap Maul.
This is a Snap Maul, I think. Like
Snapkeep.
3, like the mana rocks, you're gonna have to cast them like every turn. So you're playing at like a penalty just to keep up with the board.
This is how it works if I keep it. So I draw the land on turn 2. I play my first mana rock, and then turn 3, I play 2 mana rocks, and I'm gonna hit another land, and then I'm gonna play a Birds of Paradise or something.
That's the question though, because like. If you draw 1 land, the hand's pretty bad still. Because, like, you draw the land, you play a mana rock. The next turn, I don't know.
Well, okay, so if you
I guess it's okay.
When you got 1 land, then you have basically... Well, when you draw 1
mana
land,
rock
you have 5 mana in your hand, essentially.
Yeah.
I think that's fine. And then you can cast your 3 cards that are CMC 5 or greater. I guess if they're, like, all 7s, then it's, like, bad. Yeah. But if they're all 5s... Or if there are 5s that like draw me cards or whatever. Like if it's a 5 that draws me cards.
I don't even play mana rocks, like period. Because I think they're incredibly risky. And then now you're trying to convince me to keep 1-landers like totally relying on mana rocks.
You gotta stop living in fear. You can't live your life in fear. You have to say YOLO. You just have to be like, deal with it. And if you can deal with it, I'll be sad. But if you don't, I'm gonna be really happy.
Okay, Richard, same hand, but replace the mana rocks with rampant growths. Would you keep it? Like, is it just the fragility of the mana rocks that you don't like, or is the hand itself, like, the problem?
So, I think if the actual, like, action cards are extremely good, I would keep, but if they're mediocre, I would mull. Because, like, the rampant growths are essentially, like, your land drops, but you have to pay mana for them. Right? So, you know, you're not actually accelerating ahead of anyone, like... I guess you are slightly, but like to me that's not strong enough, right? So if the rest of the hand was nuts, then yes, I would keep that. But the fragility of the mana rocks is definitely a thing, right? Because there are worlds where you go like 1 land, 3 mana rocks, and then you draw more cards. You play like 2 more mana rocks or something. Turn 6, whatever. You have like 2 lands, 4 mana rocks. Someone rats, and then your game is over. I call it the
farewell get you. Yeah.
Right. So like, it's very likely that like you can't. So the thing with making land drops is you can't make up for them. Like no matter like how far you go into the future, unless you're playing a deck with actual ramp like green, like once you've missed that land drop, you forever miss it, right? And you can make up the mana with like mana rocks and dockside and things like that. But if someone removes that, you are set back like super far behind. So I value slow and steady, hit those land drops. Rampant growth counts as a land drop. Like I ignore opposition agent. People are like, oh, but what if Krim is here? Just assume that's not going to happen. And like your rampant growth counts as a land. But the mana rocks are a bit sketch to me.
I don't live in fear.
Sam Black deck building over there.
Yeah, I don't live in fear though. I'm okay with it. I do agree though, like the 5-drop that you're casting into has to be decent. Ideally it needs to draw cards. That's the big thing. If it's drawing cards, if it's getting me more action, but also drawing me lands as well, then it's the easiest keep of my life. But yeah, I mean, you could also just not do anything with this hand, right? Like, if you don't see your second land, you're not doing anything, but I'm going to draw that land. I know it. So
I think, fine. Well, the problem is if you don't draw it, you are in for the worst 2 hours of your life. Like, there's nothing worse than being the player that can't play Commander when everyone else is playing. So what if you don't have a land for 5 turns or something? Like, you literally just do nothing. I think I value avoiding that position enough that I think I'd want to ship the borderline hand to make sure that I get to do something rather than take the like 1/3 risk that I do nothing or whatever the math says it is.
All right, this one's an interesting one. Plains, Esper Sentinel, and then like do nothing cards, like three drops up. So you're gonna rely on your Esper Sentinel to draw you out of this pickle you're in.
This one's very interesting because I think it depends on how good you are at politicking and having a poker face. Because I think if the table knows that you need to trigger the Sentinel, that I think that like is a big problem. Like if they know, I think people will skip their mana rocks for a turn and play off curve. But if you can either politic your way into it and be like, oh, poor me, I kept the risky hand, let me draw a card. Or if you can you bluff your way through it so no one knows that you're in such dire straits if this doesn't trigger, maybe. But I don't know. I would probably not keep it.
I should this one. I think, like, well, turn one Esper Sentinel is the best an Esper Sentinel can ever be. We know that statistically because we tracked it for a season. Like, that is when you're going to hit people's rampant growth and stuff, and they're going to do it. Like, they're not going to say, I want to believe in a utopia in the future. One day, we'll get to the point where people will be like, I will cast my rampant growth on turn 3 instead of turn 2 because I'm a responsible #gamer. But we're not at that world yet. We're not at it. So it's going to draw you I would bank on drawing one card off Esper Sentinel if I played at turn 1, and I was going first. If I'm going last in the turn order and something, then, okay, I'm not going to get somebody's Sol Ring. But even though, no. And then turn 2 is when people are going to play Signets and stuff. So you're going to get those. Yes.
Wait, does that mean you want to keep this then?
I keep it. I talked my way into it.
You still don't have any ramp though. Like, even what's your best case? You hit a land and you only have 2 lands and do nothing. Yeah. Like, that's still not an exciting hand. I think when we were talking about people mulliganing anymore, I think mulliganing for ramp is like the best thing to mulligan in for in Commander. So the fact that even if things work out, I'm not ramping and just making a land drop makes me skeptical. I feel like even the hands like ceiling is not that exciting.
What if you draw 2 lands? Now you can play your 3 drops on turn
3. What if you pop off and draw 3 cards? Okay, so like what if it was not Esper Sentinel but like Ancestral Recall? Does that?
Oh. So if I knew I was going to draw 3 cards.
Like, you're going to draw 3 cards, and you would assume that there are multiple lands in there, and that the rest of your game progresses. Like, is that... I think that's what you're hoping for, right? You hope someone plays a Sol Ring into Esper Sentinel. You hope the next player plays a Rampant Growth into it, and then you draw, like, a couple of cards.
I think I still free roll for ramp. I guess it would depend on my build and how many colors I am and how much ramp I have, but I think I would still just free roll to try to hit a couple lands in a ramp spell or something.
So I've definitely run into this, and I usually mulligan because I'm looking for Dousing Dagger.
The ramp. You're looking for the ramp,
right? I'm like I have better hands than this, right? Like anything Dousing Dagger is a much stronger hand, or like a land tax or something. Like, even though Esper Sentinel is incredibly strong, my deck can yield like much stronger hands, so I will actually mulligan to search for them. If this was like 2014 or something, and that was like a Skull Clamp, I'm playing mono white, I'm like, oh no, I gotta hold on to this. Like, this is the best my deck will ever do. Wow. I gotta keep this risky hand. But yeah, I think Seth is right. You try to mull into like ramp or a stronger hand, even though Esper Sentinel is really strong. Like,
I think my real answer is not Snap Keep, but it's like it really depends what those 3 drops are, what the rest of the cards are in my hand are, and where my commanders at. Because I honestly think like if I keep a Plains Esper Sentinel, I do a turn 1 Esper Sentinel, I'm expecting to draw at least 2 cards, I think, by the end of depending on where I'm also sitting. If I'm like last on the turn order and I drop this on turn 1, I assume people's turn 2s, somebody's going to feed me at least 1 card. And if somebody got the Sol Ring start, I mean, that's very lucky of them, but that's going to draw me a card as well. But then somebody on turn 2 is going to be either a Signet or a Talisman or a Rampant Growth. So I'm going to draw a card off that. And then, like, it really depends if the other cards that I have in my hand are worthwhile, like, exciting enough that I want to keep. Like, if they're all, like, do nothings, like, if they're, like, 6 drops and stuff that I can't even cast for many, many, many millennia, then yeah, I'm gonna ship it. But like if they're really good, like I don't know, it's like a 3-drop is like a Kodama's Reach or something. I don't know, like it's something good. Then I'll keep it. I'm pretty sure in Commander Clash at least, I don't think I remember keeping less than like 3 lands in my hand. Like it's always like 3 or 4. But then when we get to these like interesting debates where you have like this really powerful thing at the beginning, then I get greedy. But realistically, I'm like 3 or 4. I'm a 3 or 4 person.
Okay.
Anyhow.
So 2 landers. Okay, so 2 lands and then random crap. Okay, so like no ramp in there, but just like 2 lands and like things you can probably cast, like 3s and 4 drops and 2 drops. Like, is that enough? We've been talking about like a magical like 3 lander all the time. Is 3 lands the cutoff? Is 2 lands random stuff good enough?
So 2 lands, no ramp, I'm shipping. I think every time. Because I really want the ramp spell. I think mulliganing for ramp is really powerful. So I think if it's my first mulligan and I'm mulliganing to 7, I think I'm shipping that every time to try to hit a ramp spell. If I've already mulliganed once, that's where it becomes interesting. If I'm going to 6 the next time, 2 lands, hopefully I got like a 3-drop that maybe does something. Then I don't like going to 6. So the free mulligan, easy snap mull. Once I'm down to mulliganing to 6-0, then I'm kind of like, oh, I probably like, I probably end up keeping it and regretting it would be my guess.
I think generally speaking, yeah, if it's like a 2-lander and how many high impact things do you have at 2? I don't know. If it's like 2-lander and like an Esper Sentinel, I'm snap keeping it again.
Yeah, Mystic Remora.
Yeah, Mystic Remora. Even like if I was playing Rhystic Study, if I had like 2 lands on a Rhystic Study, I'd probably keep it.
Stoneforge,
find
maybe.
a 3rd land, drop down Rhystic Study, hope for the best.
I think I would keep most 2 land hands.
Yeah. What?
Like, I think,
most?
like, in a vacuum, like most, because like the way you build your deck, like what's coming, like what's the rest of the cards and what's coming, right? Like if you have ramp, you can hope to draw it, right? You're very likely 64% to draw the 3rd land, and it's like castable enough, like as long as the rest of your hand isn't like complete garbage, right? Like so, like what could happen? You could draw land secret rendezvous, right? Or you could draw catch up ramp, or you can draw rampant growth or whatever, right? So I think for me, the minimum bar is 2 lands, and then you gotta look at the rest of the cards in your deck. But anything below 2 lands is automatic mull. 2 lands is where it starts getting interesting, and you can think about it a bit more.
Depends on what the rest of the cards are. Like, they have to be really good, and they have to be good early. That's the thing for me.
But aren't all your cards good?
No, because if I have like a 6-drop, it doesn't matter.
I mean, Crater Hoof is great. Sun Titan's great, but it's not going to help me there. I do think that's a good point, though, about ramp, though. With 1 land, your ramp's usually not going to be turned on if you top deck it. With 2 lands, most of your ramp is probably active, so you probably have like close to 50 hits in the deck at that point. So I think the odds are actually like pretty good that you're going to hit something there. Still, though, why keep a hand like that when you get a free mulligan? And you can, like, mulligan into what I would consider... I mean, I guess maybe if the hand
you can mull into a 1-lander or a 0-lander or a 6-lander, right?
If the hand is like the Tomer Halar hand, where it's like, if I hit the land, I win the game, okay, I can see that. But if it's just, like, medium stuff, I don't know. I think I'd spin for the upside of getting a better hand.
Believe in the heart of the card set. So unironically, this is why I don't play like spot removal. This is why I don't play like situational cards, because I like knowing that all of my draws are live, right? And I really try to limit like the Teferi's protections and things like that to like a certain number, so that my hand isn't full of these and I'm not top decking these things. Like ideally, all the cards in my deck are good, and ideally all the time, right? Obviously that's like ideal and not going to happen, but like, I do believe I'll rip that Dousing Dagger off the top, right? Like it's in the deck for a reason. It's going to come, right? So
wait, so you don't keep...
Is that too much? Is that too much hopeum?
So you don't play swords?
Spot removal, you don't play
swords You don't play Swords and Paths so you can keep super sketchy two-landers. I don't
It's to make sure all of your cards are good at all times. You don't have this like situational card that you're gonna sit on the whole game.
Everybody in the YouTube comments is always like, Richard's like the secret magic mastermind. At this real time, he's like, I don't want swords, so I can keep the sketchy two-lander because I might top deck a sword, and then my sketchy two-lander will be punished.
Keep 0 landers.
This is your hero comment section. This is your hero.
I'm serious though. Don't play the situational cards, right? You're like,
I
agree when you look at the rest of your hand and you're like, well, the cards that do nothing. What are the cards that do nothing? A Swords to Plowshares, right? Like that's not helping you get out of this, right?
But do you not like run Sun Titan and like good high end cards because you might draw them when you have 2 lands?
No, but that's why we have a mana curve, right?
Yeah.
That's why you make a mana curve to make sure this part works, right?
Yeah.
But for cards where you have like more options, right? Like, there's always these like highly situational cards that if you cast them, like you win the game, but if you don't cast them, like they kind of suck. Like I tend not to play those type of cards. And to me, like a Swords to Plowshares is similar to like spot removal. It does nothing until you really need it. And then when you really need it, it's good. But before then, it's absolutely nothing. And like a Swords to Plowshares is essentially a Sun Titan to me. It's like a 6-drop. Like you're not going to cast it till like way later in the game. And it's just going to rot in your hand the whole time. So like, if I'm snapping off the swords on turn 2, like something has gone terribly wrong, right? So, yeah, I don't know.
I agree with the theory. I just don't know about the reasoning. So I can keep 2 landers, but I do agree. Like I also try to avoid situational cards, but
I just don't think I don't think Swords of Plowshares is what I would consider a situational card. Like maybe in like a. I don't know, like
a situational card.
No, everybody has a commander. Everybody has a creature in their command zone, and 9 times out of 10, that one is like a card that you need to get removed. Like if somebody's like, for example, like somebody just drops down Tatyova. If they ramp into Tatyova, and I have Swords to Plowshares, and I can take out Tatyova before they start like refilling their hand, and they just had like a bunch of ramp, then I've set them back 1 or 2 turns. Like I've time walked them twice. And like for 1 mana, it was worth it.
You know what's even better though is if someone has Tatyova, and Tomer has Swords to Plowshares, and I get to play my good cards while you kill the Tatyova. The Tatyova.
Okay, but then if everybody's
that's the ultimate win.
it's the argument for being a parasitic player, where you're like, I'm going to just rely on everybody else at the table to deal with the situations for me, so I can be super greedy with my deck building. The problem is that when everybody's parasitic, then you just all fold to the first threat that goes on the table. And so you have to play for the meta.
You all lose. It's fine.
But it's like
once that happens, then you switch the strategy,
sure,
right? Like there's an evolving metagame, right? But if I know there's Tomer there with like 8 spot removal ready to fire off like any threat, of course I'm gonna sit here and let him do it, right? Sure. And I'll sit here. But the situational part, here's what I'm saying. Like if you have 2 lands and you miss your 3rd land drop, right? And you got to discard your hand size, whatever, and you fire off a Swords to Plowshares on someone's like random 3-drop commander. Mm-hmm. Like that's not a win for you. You didn't want to do that, right? You wanted to do like literally anything else, right? So yes, you could cast it, but you didn't really want to, right? So I do think it's situational in that case, right? Yes, you got some value, but that's not what you really wanted to be doing.
I think the situation comes up often enough that like you really do need to have a couple spot removal spells in your deck. Like if it was like a disenchant and everybody wasn't running like enchantresses or whatever, then yeah, okay, I understand that. But like everybody has a scary commander in their command zone, so I'm just like I don't know.
I mean, you do have to play some removal. I would rather play Generous Gift or Beast Within or Assassin's Trophy, something like that over Swords and Path, because to minimize the drawback of like, because there are situations where there's nothing you want to Path or Swords or whatever.
Swords hater now, Seth? You're not playing
Swords
anymore?
I don't play Swords or Path anymore. I've bought into the Richard reasoning. I still play the Generous Gifts and stuff that can kill anything, but
I also
get 1 spot removal. Generous Gift.
Oh god, I also put Generous Gift over Swords of Plowshares these days just because it's more flexible. I want my cards to be less like. I agree with Richard. I think you don't want to run too many situational cards, but most of the type of person who will run Ink Shield in my Orzhov decks because I'm gonna get you, and I love it.
I mean, I run Mana Tithe, which is like the most situational card possible. But
there's good deck building, and then there's just I want to play memes, and I embrace suboptimal plays, which I think that's also part of the fun of Commander too, because it is like.
Speaking of maximum deck building, 2 lands, Dockside Extortionist, random stuff.
Ship it.
Maybe if I'm the most powerful card in EDH.
If I was in CEDH, I knew everybody was dropping like low cost ramp, like 0 drop ramp, and multiple like everybody was running Mana Crypt, everybody was running Sol Ring, everybody was running the Moxins and stuff. That everything was like all that sort of stuff, and everybody's on Rhystic Study in Mystic Remora, and then that I can be like, okay, turn 2, I can play Dockside Extortionist. I know I'm going to be making like 6+ treasures, and I can start, playing out my cards in hand, and hopefully some of them are card advantage or other ramp spells, and I'm going to be absolutely fine. But like, if I'm just like at like a mid-power table where people are just going to be going like turn 2 ramping growth, and there's no enchantment on the battlefield, somebody plays a Signet or something, and I'm looking at my like turn 2 Dockside Extortionist, and I'm making like 2 mana off it. Nah.
It might depend a little bit on how many green decks are at the table.
Yeah.
If everyone's a green deck and playing land ramp, it gets worse. But I lean towards keep, not snap keep, but I lean towards keep. Even if I'm only getting... So first off, I have 2 lands. So I don't really need to draw a land in my first 2 turns. So it gives me... Odds are I'm going to hit my 3rd land drop in time. Like, because I get, 4 draws or something by the time I would miss my land drop. So I'd probably hit a land anyway. And there's a ton of upside here. Like, one of the easiest ways to just run away with a game of Commander is Dockside Extortionist into something big on like turn 3 or something. So I get that upside that if people are going Sol Ring Signets or something, I could just be like dropping some Consecrated Sphinx or some ridiculous expensive bomb that takes over the game. So soft keep on that one.
I said I would keep 2 landers. So 2 landers Dockside is all upside.
You have to now.
I think I agree. Like, you normally don't drop Dockside on turn 2. Even in CEDH, you don't sit there and just run your stuff out to get instantly countered and lose the game, right? Like, it's usually more of like a 4 or 5 drop, but it's a really good 4 or 5 drop. So you just sit on the 2 lands and hope you draw more, which you most likely will, and then just play your game, and you have this kind of bomb sitting in your back pocket. So I think this is a keep.
But you need to also hit 2 lands. Like, it says no, everything else is 4 or more mana.
Yeah.
So you need to...
Well, but your Dockside is probably helping with that to some extent. Like,
yeah,
that can
do you
make
really
up for...
Do you really feel good about running out like a Dockside and making like 2 treasures or something?
Not feel good about it, but if it's letting me cast my 5-drop or 4-drop or something, I'll deal with it.
But then you can play 1 4-drop or 5-drop, and then you have to hope to keep hitting lands so you can cast the rest of the cards in your hand.
Well,
that's so
when you're blanking on your draws, you're drawing something, right? So unless you keep drawing like 7 drops or whatever, like, you're probably drawing like low cost things that you can play. But yeah, it's going to depend on what those cards are, right?
Like,
I think the answer to all this is if that 4+ mana thing is like a card draw spell or a ramp spell or something, that kind of excuses the shaky keep earlier, right? Because once you get there, like, you're golden, right?
Yeah. I mean, I kept every single 1-lander that we had as a scenario, so...
So you got to keep the 2 landers.
I guess.
Also, just mathematically, if you're getting 3 draws in a scenario, you're up to like 77% to hit a land out of those 3 draws. So I think that's a lot better than, like, you're up to what, like 4/5 of the time instead of 1/3 of the time. So I think that's enough to make me change my feelings on it too.
We have a very specific one here. Peripherals Bronze-Blooded as the commander, okay? 2 mountains, Faithless Looting, a Braid, Feldon of the 3rd Path, Chaos Morph, Magus of the Wheel.
Doesn't this sound like great? I mean, I lean towards snap.
There's so much spot removal in it. You gotta throw it
Well, you
all
got Faithless Looting. Yeah, you can loot it away.
It says big deep down like Tomer's version. I don't run the Braid and stuff, but
so there's no ramp, which is the thing I don't like about this hand. But Faithless Looting is almost going to surely hit your land drops. And then you have multiple powerful 3-drops, Feldon and Magus and Chaos Warp. I don't know. I think the hand's, for being a non-ramp hand, like I want ramp hands most, but for being a non-ramp hand, that one seems decent. I think I would keep it.
So I can tell you, as someone who does, I do have a Perforos Bronze Blooded deck. The number one goal of Perforos is just to get your Perforos out. And he's 5 mana, so you want to just hit your lands, you want to ramp a little bit, and get Perforos down, and then you're good. You don't need more lands after that. Like, you just need 3 mana, and you're golden. I think this is pretty decent because Faithless Looting is such a solid card selection. Like, if I drew another card here, I'd probably be pitching a Braid and Chaos for my 2 spot removal spells, early spot removal, or like a big fatty because I have Feldon in my hand. If we drew into it, and then you could also, if you hit one more land, you can flashback Faithless Looting to keep finding more lands after that. So Faithless Looting is letting you see 2 extra cards per cast. I think so. I would keep this.
I think so. The Faithless Looting fixes the fact that you're playing spot removal. So you chuck those 2, get the land. And then, okay, Faithless Looting is card disadvantage, right? But it's cool because you got Magus on the wheel to like fix all of this, right?
Yes.
So
and also Feldon
it's a bit of a slow start, but you're guaranteed to play a game of Magic the Gathering here.
Yeah, it's also card disadvantage, but Feldon the Third Path is in particular. The fact that you have that in your opener, it's a reanimator card. It will let you make copies of creatures in your graveyard. So Faithless Looting, putting potential big creatures in the graveyard when you have Feldon in your opener, and you're just 1 land away from actually casting him and getting him online, makes this Faithless Looting like way better. It cuts down on the badness of card disadvantage, or makes it even an upside.
Same hand, no Faithless Looting is that Snap Mull for everyone. Like, I think that's actually more interesting because the odds are still pretty good that you're going to hit the 3rd land drop by the time you're on turn 3. But for some reason, it feels so much worse without the card selection of looting.
Oh, it's so much.
Telling me that you don't want to play spot removal without saying it. That's like a double mull. You can mull to 5 before you're upset about this. Like, that and Braid and Chaos Warp are doing nothing. Like, that's a 5-lander.
You still need them because I don't want to lose games.
But not in your opening hand, right?
Yeah, not in my opening hand. Just like I don't want, like on turn 8, I don't want to draw Birds of Paradise. But I mean, it's still good. In different parts of the game, right?
But if you load up your deck with like 8 spot removal, like every mull is gonna like have one of these. Get the Hyperdream Magic Calculator out, right? Like that's the problem, right? But this is like a mull to 5 or something without the looting, right? Like the Braid is useless, the Chaos Warp is useless.
You can always Chaos Warp your Feldon to try to hit a land. It's kind of ramp. Chaos Warp's kind of ramp.
Oh no!
That's.
This I would ship immediately if it wasn't Faithless Looting. If it was a land though, I would keep it. If it was instead of Faithless Looting a land, I'd probably keep it. Yeah, I wouldn't be happy about it though.
Ooh.
Interesting. So 3 lands: a Braid, Feldon, Chaos Warp, Magus is a keep.
Probably.
If I haven't mulled yet, I'd probably ship it.
I've had just games of Perforos where I'm fine just being like land drop. Hit 5 lands, put Perforos on turn 5, and go from there. Like, that's fine. You don't always have to ramp.
All right. Oh, I think this one comes up often too. So 2 non-green sources, and then 2 green ramp spells, and 3 or more 4+ mana spells. So you need to hit the green source to make this happen. So
this, I think it's correct to ship. I think I might keep it because I'm super greedy sometimes, and I would know it's incorrect. So the problem here is your ramp's not on because you have no green mana on your green deck, so your ramp's going to mostly require green, and you're going to have some number of lands in your deck that are also whiffs. You're drawing basic mountains, basic islands or something. So you have these whiffs that are built in and whatever colorless lands you might be playing. So I think that when you consider all the ways that you could draw something that you would normally want to and still have it not work out, I think you got to mulligan it.
I specifically remember Seth keeping these hands and doing nothing.
I've learned. I've learned from my mistakes.
I remember Seth like just missing like a single green source that would turn on, and then he lamented at the end of the game. He's like, "But look, I had cultivate Kodama's reach. All I needed was that one green land. It really would all be fixed, and he didn't draw it."
Okay, how many colors are we? How many green sources are in the deck? I think that's the main question. Is this like a 5-color deck? No. Is this a 3-color deck? Also no. Is this a 2-color deck? Or is it, it's a 1-color deck and you just have like 2 colorless lands and like,
yeah.
Like, but I think that's the major thing. If this is a 2-color deck and I have like, I don't know, if I have like a 70% chance of hitting just a green source, it doesn't matter if it's like a mana rock that taps for green or if it's a green land or anything like that, then I'm going to keep it. But like, if I have anything lower than like a 70% chance, I ain't keeping it. But I'm probably keeping it most times.
I think it's even worse for you, Tomer, because you're going to have, even in a 2-color deck, you're going to have like 10 islands or something. 10 islands because you love your basic so much. So your odds of hitting the wrong basic is going to be high.
True. But also, I just care about the hypergeometric. And if it says 99% because I did it wrong, then I'm keeping it. Also, I'm never punished. Like, that's the thing. It's like, I'm never punished. So like, why would I ever mull if I'm never punished? And the upside's so good.
Okay, let's say you do the math, okay, and you get a percentage. What is your percentage cut for like a playable game? So Tomer, you just said 70. Is that true? If it's above 70, you're like, we're going.
Hell yeah, we're going. We're going for it.
I mean, I think that sounds really good if you hit.
Tolerant, right?
Because if you hit that green, you got 2 green ramp, and you're set for life. You're set for life.
I would keep it 70 for sure. I might even go down a little bit. That 64%er that we've been talking about throughout the podcast, I would probably keep it that. Like if I thought there was a 2/3 ish roughly chance that I would hit, I would probably do it.
6%.
Because I think that hand's so good.
I would have
if
to
you
be
hit.
at like 90 or something. Like
very safe.
I don't like having a third of my games not be games, right? So I would rather play a game and be bad at it and like you know what I mean, like be like just be like perpetually behind things. And like slightly bad, but get to play a game of Magic. Then 1/3 of the time I do absolutely nothing, and then maybe 1/3 of the time I pop off because I kept this like crazy hand. Like I would rather the mid-range approach, just always slow, steady, mediocre, but like
the Jun player in Richard coming out.
Just keep going. Interesting. Of course, I don't know the actual math, so it's just all like YOLO decisions. But if I actually knew the number, I think my number would be a lot higher than you guys.
Yeah,
it's hard to calculate too, because how many green sources do you have is hard to figure out without going through actual deck lists.
Well, if you play the same deck like continually, like you should be able to get a good idea.
Get used to it.
Your deck just typically has like 15 green sources, right? And when you run into these situations, you should remember the percentages.
Yeah,
right.
And there are ways of kind of like using math to your advantage to not just like figure out whether or not you should mull or not, but also like just like how many lands you should be running, how many colored sources you should be running. And two articles that I always use for all my deck building these days are Frank Carson articles. I'm going to have linked in the video description here. I'm going to post it in the article as well. The first one is how many lands do you need in your deck, which is just like talking about basic land counts, and it takes advantage of your mana curve, and it also takes advantage of your commander mana value, which is also very important. And the other one is like how many colored sources do you need to consistently cast your spells as well. I believe he's his version of consistent is like 75 or 80%, and that's good enough for him. And I don't know if it's good enough for Frank, it's good enough for me. That's my motto.
That's 1v1 talk. So 1v1. I will go very low, right? Because if you do a 60%er or something and then you lose, you scoop and go to next game. In Commander, you sit there for 2 hours and like twiddle your thumbs as everyone else plays. So when you keep risky hands in 1v1, it's like very easy to be like, oh, didn't work out, scoop, right? Next, on to the next one, right?
Yeah, but then you're behind and people are like... if you're behind, then that means people will target you less, and then you're allowed to develop. Like it's fine. Like, okay, you're a little bit behind because you didn't draw very well. Oh well. It's not because it doesn't mean you're out of the game for like the next hour. It just means you're out of the game for a couple turns, and then you're probably going to get another chance at glory. Yeah, it's not that bad.
It is a good catch up hand with 2 ramp spells. Like, even if you did miss your 3rd land drop for a turn, with 2 ramp spells, you probably get back into it.
I also lowballed Frank a lot. His version of consistent means 90%. Which is very high.
Yes, that is.
Where consistently means 90% probability.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we should be mulliganing then, basically.
A lot.
Is that the TLDR from Frank?
I think if Frank was here, he would be yelling at us to like mull most of these hands. We're like 66%. Yes, send it.
I mean, so if you just play Commander without playing 60 card, then this concept might be known to you, right? But like a strong 5-card hand is way better than like a 7-card mediocre hand, right? Like if I have 4 land Secret Rendezvous or something, better than like, Swords to Plowshare's Path to exile 5 planes or whatever. Like you can, like, especially with Commander, with how the threat assessment and the targeting works, and like the amount of power you can like just pop out of nowhere, like going down to 5 is not a death sentence in Commander as it is in 1v1, right? Because in 1v1, as you're sitting around trying to catch up, your opponent is like beating you down into the ground, right? Whereas in Commander, like maybe someone else is taking the heat, maybe some other stuff is happening, right? You have time to sit around to catch up. So maybe the answer to this is just mulligan everything.
Yeah,
that might actually be the right.
Honestly, you probably get punished way less in Commander by mulliganing, but no one likes to do it. But I think you get lots of card draw in most of your decks too. And one thing I've learned is you can only have 7 cards in your hand. I used to love trying to draw as many cards as possible, but I've realized more just like having some cards in hand to do things is way more important than drawing endless cards. So going to 5 and then casting your Muldrift or whatever is perfectly fine. So yeah, I think you're right.
Okay,
I'm learning a lot from this podcast. This is like an intervention for me.
Do you not mull? I think Tober mulls a lot.
I do mull a lot. Like the person who's giving this advice on these, because these 2-landers and 1-landers are so tantalizing, but I don't actually, I don't even run Vampiric Tutor. We don't run Soul Ring. Like half these things are like, we don't run Dockside Extortionist. So I'm like, oh yeah, sure, I'm gonna run all these cards, but like. Then I run like my garbage piles of garbage. I'm like, yeah, I need to keep 4 lands or else it's bad.
Okay, let's talk about colors. Okay, how frisky are we feeling with colors? 2-color deck. So you're running a 2-color commander. You have 3 lands of the same color. I.e., you're missing one of your colors.
You're missing a color.
Is that keepable?
This one's really tough because it's very hand dependent, I think. Like, if the rest of my hand is also the cards of the color of the lands that I have and I can do things, then it's probably fine. But I can play the cards I have in hand and I'll draw the other color by the time I need it, and by the time I draw cards of that color, if it's vice versa, all the cards in my hand are the color that I don't have lands for, then I think you gotta mull it right away. You can't YOLO it and like hope that you draw into it. So I think it really depends on the rest of your hand makeup. And your commander, like, I guess, well, no, I guess if you're 2-color, you're not going to cast your commander with 1 color, but yeah.
I'm with Seth. It really depends on what you can do with that color. Like, if you can cast stuff and if you have some sort of game plan for the first couple turns or whatever, then I would keep it.
I think you just keep it in like 95% of the situations. Like, even if, okay, let's say it's the worst case scenario, right? You have like 3 lands of 1 color and then 4 cards of the other color that you can't cast any of them. As you draw more cards, either you drew a land of the other color, right? Or you drew cards of the color lands you already have, so you can cast them, right? So it's like a very harsh scenario where you got to draw cards that are like 5 mana value or greater, or continue to keep drawing cards of the other color. So unless you're like Krim and you're playing like cryptic commands and random stuff, like usually your pips are not like that intensive. So as long as the other cards are reasonable, I would keep it. So I'm okay that you can't cast them as long as like they're good cards, such that when you cast them, they do something useful.
Let's rephrase the question then. How about it's 3 lands of the same color, And if you get a single card, it could be a ramp card or a lane card, any of those that are of the other color, you can cast all the other cards in your hand. Would you keep it? I know Richard's a yes.
I said yes.
Richard's already, I know Richard's already.
So it has to be yes for this one.
But Seth, so like you can't. You need to have one more color, the other color, and it could be a ramp card or any ramp card
and then,
or any
and then
lane
it fixes
card.
Your hand afterwards.
And my entire hand
you
is
can cast
unlocked.
everything in your hand once you get that one card.
So my big issue with this hand is still that I don't have any ramp. That's still my big issue. Like, it's not so much the risk associated with it. I think, like, mathematically it would work out in that scenario if I only need one colored source that I'm missing. But I don't know. Shouldn't you just free roll to try to hit some ramp?
Okay, what if there's ramp of the other color in there?
Oh, okay. Then it becomes more tempting. Then it becomes much more tempting. Oh, I guess, boy, I'd be on the fence, but I think yes. I think I would keep it. If I knew that one thing would unlock my hand and I would be able to, like, execute my game plan well, then I'm on board, I think.
Okay. 5 color deck. 3 lands of the same color.
No.
Right?
That one is...
no world?
No.
I mean, maybe if I have
need?
Chromatic Lantern is my 3-drop or something, but, like...
If my commander was Golos.
If my commander, yes. If they unban Golos.
You can only play Golos, but all your opening hands look like this. What would you do?
And he's going to hit
so
2 more
3
lands.
lands. How many colors do your lands need to hit before this is a playable? So 1 is out. What about 2 colors? What if you can get 2 colors with these lands?
I think you really got to be looking 3. I think the minimum I would want is like a basic of each, 3 different basics. And I would prefer to have like all 5 colors between my dual lands and triomes and so forth. So, but I think 3 is like the minimum for me. With some exceptions, like if you got green ramp and you got green mana, like that changes everything. But in general, like assuming that's not happening, I think I want at least 3 colors.
I think my most consistent takeaway with all this, like now that we've gone through it for like an hour, is just like, I will keep basically anything as long as the rest of the... No, let me finish. That's reasonable, I swear. I'll keep anything as long as like I have a game plan of casting the rest of the cards. Like, what is the next couple of turns being? So if it's okay, it's a 5-color deck, so odds are probably this is not a keepable. But if I happen to have like the rest of the cards or the cards that draw... Our card draw engine, for example, can be cast with those 3 lands, and then I can draw cards or ramp or do whatever and find the other colors, and I'll be fine after that. Then fine, but it's highly unlikely. It's very unlikely that such a scenario would come up. It's like Crim's mono green. Remember his mono green deck that was actually 5-color Bolas nonsense? Like, okay, if he has 3 forests in that, then yes, he probably is fine, right? But like, odds are no, right? Nah.
So in actuality, I might actually keep this because
oh my god,
my 5-color mana bases lean heavily on the world tree.
Oh my god,
the world tree fixes everything.
Oh,
that is true.
Sure.
Wow, that's so risky.
But this is why you don't play basics, though, right? Because by having 3 lands, you can actually get like more colors, and this is why fetch triome mana base is so important for commander, right? Because you can guarantee, like, if you have 2 fetches, you guarantee all your colors.
That's true.
Right? And then if you have non-fetches, they're triomes, so they're already like 3 colors, right? So that's why the mana base is kind of important for these decks.
Yeah, I mean, if this was 2 basics of the same color and a fetch, the hand's fine. Hand's good even, because you can get a triome with a fetch land and you get all 4 colors. So yeah, fetches really changed the equation.
All right, so
play more basics.
This one's for Seth. Okay, 3 ETB tapped lands and then just random stuff. So what would those ETB tap lands be in like a legit deck? Probably an MDFC, probably triomes, right? Like, but you know, guild gates if you're on a budget, right?
So this is gonna sound bad, but I don't think ETB tapped is like, it's not a deal breaker. I don't think it's that much of a punishment in Commander. Like, for the same reasons we were just talking about, where you get a bunch of opponents, if you're getting a slow start, they're probably not ganging up on you and trying to like take you out. So I keep all MDFC hand pretty regularly. Like, if the rest of my hand is functional, like 3 tap lands, I am not shook. That does not bother me at all.
I think when you have 3 in your hand, then it's pretty common that you're going to have like a 2-drop that is going to be a turn later, or a 3-drop that's going to be a turn later. So it's not ideal. I'm not happy about it, and I definitely try to limit the amount of tap lands I have in my decks to like 5 or so I won't have these situations that often. Yeah. I'm okay having 1 tap land in my hand because I can kind of get around it. Like I can play it early, and then it probably won't affect turn 2 or 3, and then that's totally fine. But once it's like starting to interfere with how I sequence turns, then I'm not happy with it. But at the same time, if I am in a situation with 3 tap land cards, I'll be a turn late. But like if the 4 other cards are good, then I'm fine with it. It's okay. It's not the end of the world.
I think I would ship it. I'm not happy.
Would you?
Like, I think 1 or 2. So 1 or 2, you can probably sequence around such that it doesn't bother you. But if your hand is like just full of tap lands, you're like guaranteed to play off curve, and like your card quality, like it really sucks if you're playing Rampant Growth on turn 3 as opposed to turn 2. It really sucks if you're playing like Explosive Vegetation effects on turn 5 instead of turn 4. Like it's kind of like not that good, right? So you need to have some plan to get back on curve. So I don't like this, but I might keep it. It's close, but I think I would lean towards mulling it. It depends what the stuff is too, right? If it's like Ondu Inversion and stuff, I'm like kind of want that to be a spell, so I'll mull. Like I'm not happy about playing it, right? Or if it's like bounce lands, then it's more okay because like I can I actually just drew a card in this deal, so maybe I'm okay with that. Or I can reuse my MDFCs later. So
bounce lands when you in your opener when all your other lands are tapped, which means you're probably not going to be casting any spells, is basically guaranteed that you're going to be like play a tap land, play a bounce land, discard down to hand size. That's like the main fear is you really need to be able to cast something before you play your bounce land, so you don't have to discard down. And if all your other lands are tapped, then your odds are you're going to be casting anything. And then that's just like oof. That's a bit major feel bad. Play a bounce land, discard down to hand size.
You do kind of lose the upside of getting like a free card draw, quote unquote, from your bounce land if you just have to discard hand size.
It's still good. It's still upside.
Yeah, joke's on you. I'm a reanimator deck.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine if you're an reanimator.
I mean, that's just the price playing MDFCs. I think it's worth the cost. You get all this power from, and I guess it depends on your tap lands. Like if it's a bunch of gain lands or something, the cheaty lands, like for budget purposes, it's fine, but that feels a lot worse to me. But I'm willing to accept some slow hands if my lands are working like spells. Like I think for me, the cost is worth the upside in the late game.
I run MDFCs too. I will not run like 10 of them. I'll run like 4.
So Seth will mull into a ramp hand because a non-ramp hand is too slow, right? And the base level speed is like no ramp, but he has to mull above that. But if he's guaranteed to be actually behind, like 1 turn behind by playing all ETB taps, he keeps. There's something inconsistent here.
Well, okay, because here's how it works, right? On one end, Seth loves ramping. He doesn't want to be. He got to go fast. But on the other hand, he loves every single MDFC way too much.
Yeah, I wouldn't say too much.
So it only works at like it only works like if he does one or the other, it's fine. So he'll run like 10 MDFCs, and he'll also run a bunch of ramp cards. And as long as he has one of those in his hand, he's fine.
I didn't know my words from the first half of the podcast would be used against me in the second half of the podcast. But no, you are right. That might be a little contradictory.
Let's get to some interesting 6 land hands. Okay,
Whoa.
6 land hands are interesting. So 6 lands, small card draw. So like something that draws 1 or 2, like a Sign in Blood or something like that. Is that keepable?
No.
No. Okay. No.
Well, yes. In my 6-drop tribal deck, I would snap keep it. But I wouldn't be able to...
How you got to sign in blood in your 6-drop tribal deck?
But if I see 6 lands in my 6-drop tribal deck and it's a 6-drop, I keep it. I'm like, that's great.
It's hilarious because Tover had this, and then he's like, 6 lands, let me cycle them away. Then you got stuck on 5.
And then I learned, all right, that was the first run of the 6-drop tribal. It did not work out. I learned. And recently in Commander Clash, the crew saw the refined version of 6-drop tribal. I don't want to spoil it, but I'll have a link to it. And it worked very well, and I kept like a 5-lander. It was great.
Okay. 6 lands, big card draw. So like a Blue Sun Zenith, the Consecrated Sphinx, like something that's going to draw you lots of cards.
That's actually worse than the Sign in Blood hand, I think.
Yeah.
I would rather keep the Sign in Blood hand.
Yeah, me too. Because what you're Blue Sun Zenith, you're going to wait until turn 6, playing 1 land a turn and not doing much, and then you're going to draw a bunch of cards and discard down to hand size or whatever. Ugh.
But you're like kind of guaranteed to do something on like turn 5 or 6 when you Blue Sun Zenith, but you can sign in blood into 2 more lands. And then
yeah, but you can sign in blood into like a 3-drop or something, so at least you're doing something on turn 3 more consistently.
And if you Blue Sun Zenith for 5 mana, it's Sign in Blood, right? You're drawing 2 cards.
Oh, God.
I guess that's true. All right, so those are garbage hands. 6 lands. The 3 are MDFCs. You have some
I have kept this hand so many times. Yeah, snap keep on this one. I mean, it depends a little bit on what the MDFCs are. If they're all onto inversions and turn timber symbiosis, then it's a little bit sketchy. But if it's stuff I can do relatively early in the game, then I easily keep this because it's not really 6 lands. It's a 3-lander. It's a 3-lander. And then
most of the MDFCs are absolutely garbage.
Can you cast early in the game that's like actually useful?
Tangle
so
Floor
is that 2-drop 1/3 that gains a couple life? Tangle Floral Hedron. That's a good one.
That was good. That's a ramp spell.
Yeah,
okay.
So that is a ramp. So that's the best
Floral
one.
Hedron is the best, and then I would say in this situation, the next one I would want is Valakut Awakening because if it's turn 3 or whatever and I don't have a good hand, I can start shipping it for a better hand, and that's fine. But most MDFCs are not going to progress your early board state. What are you doing?
Hagra Mauling's okay. Hagra Mauling's...
You want your early turn to be a Hagra Mauling on turn 4?
I don't want it to be that, but it's not the end of it. Out of all the MDFCs, that's one of the less bad ones.
This is an intervention, so all right. You don't want to keep Zoff Consumption, Hagra Mauling, and a crappy core cleric that gives you 2 life with your 6-lander hands.
Then I can always just play him as land. Leave me alone.
6
I think the best MDFCs are situational. So Balagan Recovery, like you didn't do anything, you have nothing to buy back, so it's like kind of useless. Or like Undo Inversion, like you're just sitting around and hoping to get to 8 mana. So
I guess actually
you ship this, right? Unless
when
it's
you
the
actually
2 that Tomer talked about.
When you talk through all the MDFCs, I think you're actually right. My initial reaction is just 3 MDFCs, keep it. It's like having 3 spells. But when you actually think through the actual MDFCs, then I think you're right that you actually, unless you have the specific MDFCs, you probably should mull it.
They're very good, but they don't really advance your early board state is the thing. Like Tangle Floral Hedron does, and the other ones, I can't think of another one, honestly, that does. There's a lot of good ones. Like I still love Seagate Lord Restoration, but I don't want to have it in my opener.
A lot of them are a little expensive. Yeah, they're more really good late game effects.
Yeah.
6 lands, mass board wipe. Farewell, Our Revelation.
Yes.
Yes. So the theory is
really?
Like you're so behind, but you just play 1 land at a time, and then you reset the board.
I basically won every single game that is like this. Basically, every single time my favorite one was like I played Zedrins, which is my worst deck ever, and I just remember having like 3. I played on Mutzda's stream for a Mutzda video, and I just kept 3 lands, and I was just like, yeah, go ahead, do your things. I didn't cast a single thing until I did Hour, and then boom, able to just unload mana rocks, all my things, boom, boom, boom. Oh wait, you don't have any mana rocks to play after that because you already cast them? Aw, that's sad. That's too bad. Oh, it feels so good. Oh, yes, yes.
I don't want to sit there and do nothing for 6 turns. Even if I win as a result, I don't want to sit there and do nothing for 6 turns. So I think I would ship it.
The anticipation
of
what
Tomer recognizes this, but I'm so sad that he doesn't recognize this is the Richard strategy. Where get this. So instead of like just playing 6 lands and then board wipe, you go Spirited Companion into Sky Scanner, where it looks like you're doing stuff, but you're not actually doing anything, right? And if you need to, you can block, you can attack, you can pressure planeswalkers, you can draw cards, and then you mass board wipe. It's the same thing. But, like, you're doing things, like, to give you more options as you progress.
But you never play Farewell. You don't believe in removal.
No, I play Hour Revelation, though. Because once you play the Spirited Companion, right? When you Farewell it away, you can't buy it back later in the game. And you're going to be very upset about your Farewell. So you're going to switch. You're going to switch. Once you believe in the Sky Scanner Spirited Companion package.
Richard's so next level. He's like playing horrible white creatures just to reduce the cost on his Hour of Revelation and make his rats a little bit better so that he can get back to horrible white creatures.
Starts with
the biggest
Companion.
risk of this hand is you get run over before you make it to your board. If you actually have a Farewell, like a lot of stuff can happen before your 6th land drops. So if you're actually doing nothing, you could die.
Yes.
Right? But if you throw up a Wall of Omens, a Solemn,
if you throw a
Sky
little
Scanner,
things.
Keeps you alive, and then you can rip off the Farewell and destroy the player that kept 4 mana rocks, 2 lands, right?
But this is a little bit misleading because you still have a commander. Like, I'm totally fine throwing my commander onto the board if it's like a 3-drop or even a 4-drop, have it do whatever, and then just die to the board wipe afterwards. Like, that's totally fine. And then I still have a commander. Like, I don't, like, yes, Spirit Companion and that shell is obviously even better. That's like the best case scenario where you have all these like random dirtly value engines that are like ETB, they get you some value and then they're there to die and buy time. That's great. But also you just have a commander. You just play your commander into this and then let it die and then cast all your other cards because they're free. But yeah, I love this. I did Bane of Progress.
Would you actually keep this though? When do we land? Seth is balling this. Tomer's keeping it.
Snap.
I'm mulliganing it just so I can do something. Yeah,
do something so I can get exiled to Farewell.
The nightmare is you do the Tomer plan and then Krim just counters your Farewell and you did nothing and didn't red the board and then you definitely die.
Well, I mean, if you have a Krim at the table, then you're gonna have to also adjust your decks, right? You need to run more. Like, you need to run like Grand Abolisher effects. No, you need to run. You need to run Grand Abolisher effects. No, if you have somebody who's like every single deck in my collection is counter magic deck, then you run like Grand Abolisher and stuff to make sure that those Farewells stick.
But then your next Farewell, once you kill your Grand Abolisher.
Yeah, then you're getting countered all day, yeah.
There's more silence effects even in white.
All right, 6 lands Demonic Tutor.
This is the closest for me to actually keep it.
Is there any deck powerful enough where a Demonic Tutor will, like, fix everything?
I mean, you could Demonic Tutor into a wheel, maybe, and get a new hand.
That doesn't seem worth.
You just wheeled the table. You didn't.
They also come up on top with that because they probably had like a ramp spell on turn 2 or something. You spent your turn 2 on Demonic Tutor and then your turn 3 on a wheel. So they probably got to unload some more impactful spells before that. I think there might be a situation where that's fine.
What if you Demonic Tutor into Rhystic Study?
Demonic Tutor into your board wipe. Easy keep. Easy snap keep. Snap keep. Done. Done. Keeping it.
But Tomer, what if Krim is at your table? So not only will your board wipe get countered, you also get opposition agent to you as you're doing this.
I don't think you keep it. This is the closest. You're like
Demonic Tutor. I'll Demonic Tutor for a big draw spell. That's like the scenario that we poo-pooed on.
We already said no to that. So I guess,
Richard, if you snap keep 6 lands and a mass wipe, you have to snap keep 6 lands on a Demonic Tutor.
I wouldn't snap. I would mull that one. But the theory of it. No, because I would rather just play my Sky Scanners and stuff into the board wipe, right? But Not how that works.
Not enough sky scanners in that hand.
I can't demonic tutor for 5 sky scanners, right? I can only demonic tutor for 1, and that's a weak hand. Right?
I think this is an easy demonic tutor for board wipe for me, because you can't discount the fact that you have a commander too. Like, if your commander can like block and like kind of hang out, then you have the lands to cast it, like assuming it's 6 or less.
Who's playing their commander to chump block though, right? Like typically your commander is like part of some engine, but these 6, unless again it's Golos,
you need
like,
board
these
presence.
6 lands are not helping your commander, right?
If you need board presence, I mean, your opponent's going to lose so much in the board wipe. You're just going to lose your commander. Okay, good.
It probably does depend a little bit on your commander. Like, if I have a card advantage, like if I have Prosper or something, and I'm going to be able to like start drawing cards at 4 or something like that, then I'm more likely to be okay with probably any of these hands, honestly. Like, actually, back to the Sign in Blood one. Like, if I have some card advantage engine that's coming down on 3 or 4, then they're fine. I'm kind of assuming that's not the case, and then I don't like any of these hands, but
I think this hand's actually like, the more I'm thinking about it, the better it gets. Like, if you just have like, if you have any commander that really wants a specific card to pair up with it that makes it busted, Demonic Tutor is getting it on turn 2. And depending also what you're drawing, you could be drawing non-land cards, and Demonic Tutor is just so flexible. It will always it will be the best card in your hand, and you have enough lanes to hit all your lane drops and stuff. You have a commander, so you have two very castable cards. One of them is literally the best card in your deck for any situation, and one of them is your commander that your deck is built around. And you have lane drops for days. I don't know. This gets better. I don't even have to be like the mass board wipe play.
But you can mull into a much stronger hand, right? You can mull into like 3 lands, 2 other strong cards, and tutor, right? Like,
but I love my mass wipe and to start having fun.
But you can still have that, because once you mull, like, you could draw a tutor again, or you could draw another, an actual board wipe, right? Or whatever, right? Card draw.
But demonic tutor's so good, you can get literally any card for 2 mana.
It seems pretty easy for your second hand to be better than that to me. Yeah. Like, if you got 6 lands, it's really...
Oh, but it could be worse.
It's tough for me to construct many scenarios where I would want to keep 6.
It could be worse, though.
It could be, but mathematically...
Right. So now we're gonna... So these are all, like, mana related. So we're gonna close things out with, I think, the hardest mull decisions. So ideal mix of land and spells. So whatever that is, where like 3 lands and then some stuff. No ramp. Seth has stated time and time again he would mull this. Right?
Ship it. You get a freebie. Do we mull
Ship
it.
No.
So by ideal, I don't mean like literally the best card in your deck, but like 4 lands, 3 spells, 3 lands, like the right mix, like the optimal mix of land and spells. Not that you necessarily have the god draw of like, my whole combo's in hand and I win on turn 3 or something, just so that's clear.
Because I think there are 2, like, I agree with Seth that, like, I like having ramp in my opener hands. I like having my early plays being ramp, but I also like just hitting lane drops, being able to cast the spells in my hands consistently, knowing that. And if I have like an incremental draw engine that I can play early, then I'm okay with just keeping a hand that has that instead of a ramp thing. It doesn't have to be like ramp or bust for me. Like, if I have a turn 1 Esper Sentinel, I don't really care if I don't have any ramp. Or even if I have like a turn 1 like creature and then I have like a Mask of Memory turn 2 and I'll keep hitting lane drops from there, or I find another ramp card after that. Like, that's fine. There's like a mini scenario. So overstating,
no ramp is okay, but you have to have card draw.
Usually, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
If you don't have card draw and no ramp,
then it's Sad Panda. Yeah.
Seth, would you keep ideal mix card draw but no ramp?
And it has to be early card draw too. It can't be none of this Blue Sun Zenith garbage.
I mean, if I have the Esper Sentinel with the like ideal mix, then that's probably fine. If I have early card draw, then it's probably fine.
Okay, and then what about ideal mix? No card draw, no ramp, but like your combo pieces, your win your win cons.
Oh. So like I have Deceiver X Arcane Kiki Jiki or something. Like I have the full like literally win the game combo.
Let's say you're like a 2 card or 3 card combo deck, right? And you have one of the pieces, so you're not the full combo, but you're like halfway there.
Then I think I ship it. If I have the whole, like, if I draw my hand, I'm like, oh my god, I got the win the game combo in hand, then I'll probably take the no ramp, no card draw, trusting that I'll get to it. One combo piece, though, not interested. I'd rather ship it and try to ramp or card draw.
And the combo has to be playable with the hand, I think. Like, if you have, like, my combo requires, like, 9 mana on a single turn, then it's like, well, if it's in my opener, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't help me for a while, so...
Like, I'm not shipping Thoracle. Like, if I have Thassa's Oracle Demonic Consultation and all lands, okay, we're good. No ramp, that's fine.
Just wait until turn 3 and win.
I think if I have one, like, if it's a 2-card combo or 3-card combo, I have one, I think I keep.
Ooh.
Because, like, your card draw is essentially, you're just spending all this time to draw into this combo
trying to
piece.
find the combo.
So if you have it, but, like, if, you know, I have, like, a 5-card combo or something convoluted, then I'm going to need a lot more help. So I will mull into that. But if it's an actual playable, like, non-jank combo that people run, okay, what about the most powerful card in your deck, but it's a finisher, like Crater Hoof? Mull?
What do you mean? Yeah, you have the
ideal mix, but then you have
no
the
card
best
draw.
card, whatever it is, but you know it's not being played till like the end of the game.
Having your finisher in hand on your opening hand is not that valuable. Like, it's just, it really isn't. Like, you'd almost in some ways rather just have it in your deck so it doesn't get wheeled away or something into your graveyard. So, yeah, that doesn't really appeal to me to have my finisher to start with.
Like, a 6 or greater card in my opening hand counts as, like, a -1 card for me. In
That's
most
like a
cases.
mulligan.
Yeah, it's like it's like a 6-lander because I don't count it as a card in my hand. All
right, last one. This is for Tomer, okay? Mix of lands and spells, ramp, and spot removal. so let's say like 3 lands, Kodama's Reach, Beast within lightning. I don't know, like Swords to Plowshares, like not a board wipe, but just like spot removal.
Snapkeep.
Seth?
I'm no, I'm not. I'm not gonna. I'm gonna. Yeah.
There's ramp in there though. There's ramp in there.
Oh wait. Oh, I missed the ramp. Wait, say it one more time.
3 lands, Kodama's Reach.
2 lands, Kodama's Reach, and then the rest is spot removal.
Oh. I mean, I probably wouldn't have 3 spot removal spells in my deck, but if I was in that scenario, the Kodama's Reach would be that would be fine. I would keep it.
I would snap mullet and wonder who stole my deck.
Just to get rid of it.
And then I play some unbeatable commander card. Or unbeatable commander, and then you just lose.
Then I die, right?
But then you die.
But there are plenty of games where I want to avoid, where you have a grip full of cards, you have a ton of mana, and you do literally nothing. Because, like, your opening hand was something like Counterspell, Beast Within, you know, something, right? And you're just sitting there, you have nothing proactive to do with it.
I feel like you're describing Crim's Nut Draw. That's like the Crim Dream. The Crim Dream.
Yeah, I also have Crim. Crim is like, he will keep any land, like any hand with ideal mix of lands and spells. He will also keep 5-landers, because he's like very afraid of mauling to a 1-lander.
Yeah, that's fair.
He does get mana screwed a lot. That would
accurately describe Crim.
Yeah, I think that's about right.
But I look at my decks and I'm not even like that crazy on like removal either. Like, I have like 8 removal spells in my Mech Titan deck. Like, it's like
8.
It's not very high.
Removal, or are you including board wipes?
I'm even include. Well, yeah, Mech Titan's actually kind of low. My Changeling deck. Let's see. I have the board wipes. I have 3 board wipes, and then spot removal. I have 7 spot removal.
Whoa. I usually probably have like 2 spot removal, maybe something like that. I'll play the board wipes. I'll still have like 3 or 4 board wipes.
You
but
guys mock me, but not Seth. Seth plays like just as much spot removal as I do. 7 is almost guaranteed to have like 1 in your hand, like every single like opening hand, right?
Yeah,
and
one of them
is a guaranteed mull.
One of them is a card draw engine, Bellicor the Dark Master. So ETB draws cards and then
that doesn't really count.
Okay,
I mean, like actual like pure spot removal.
But, all right.
Yeah. All right. So those are all of our mull decisions. Listeners, have you made it to the end? Have you agreed with us? Are we mulling more or less because of this podcast now? Maybe we've talked ourselves.
More. I've talked myself into mulling more. Just as we talk through this, should we should be free rolling. Commander free mulligan, take advantage of it. That's one of the upsides of the format.
I don't even know what the takeaway is on this. Like, I think I mull quite decently in the actual games, but then here I'm like uber greed. I don't know why. You tantalize me. That's why you get all these delicious pitches.
I feel I'm pretty conservative. Well, like I mull for the 70 is not okay with me. It has to be 90. I'm a Frank Karsten believer. Yeah. Whereas I'm surprised you guys are happy for 70%ers. That seems extremely low.
I'm just happy. I'm happy if I can cast most. Like, if I have a game plan for the first couple turns and I can cast things, then that hand is good with me. If I have a hand that can't cast things, unless you got very lucky, then I'm not going to keep it. That's basically how I view mulls. That's really it.
Casting things in Magic is good.
But it doesn't matter what it is.
A lot more on one land, greens, 2 Kodama's reaches, like, snap keep. I feel if we sit down and talk about it, we know what the right answer is, but we don't actually do it when we actually play.
The 2-land Kodama's reach is a snap keep no matter what. That is don't give me the math. I don't want to know the math. It's always right. It's always correct. All right. 100% of the time.
All right, so let us know how you would mulligan, and if you think we should mulligan more or less, and if you think we know what we're doing. And we'll see you next week. See you, everyone.